trail. It's a little dense. I just wanted to show you guys this little pond over here, but this trail doesn't get used too much here. It's starting to overgrow. Driving the four-wheeler one-handed is fun. Looks like deadfall across the trail there. Continues on up there. Oh, I'm setting a parking brake there. We can take a look around here real quick just to show you. That's the trail we came in on, obviously. I mean, should get back in the opening up back over here and we'll be able to see the mountains back in there. But we'll get back to you here shortly. I got some bushwhacking to do. Looks like I could hook around those trees and get back on the trail over here. Nice, really quiet meadow here. Opposite side of this little peninsula, there's a female swan nesting. I didn't want to disturb her, but not on a very well used trail, as you can see. And look at this. This just seemed like a little odd. It could be pure coincidence, but pretty. Man. Yeah, it looks, I mean, it was snapped up by the root. It wasn't rotted. I mean, it could have been rotted in here, but it looks like there's a lot of force put in on the root there. I don't like how quiet it is here, so I'm going to skedaddle from this area, but man, what a beautiful place. Just eerily quiet though. Okay, there's a bird somewhere off in the distance. Anyway, we'll get back to you down the trail. I just wanted to share that. That just looks pretty darn strange. I mean, you can see where it was snapped there. Crazy. Could be one hell of a coincidence, but that just looks odd. Anyway, on to another trail. Hey, greetings. Thanks for joining me. It's Fred in Alaska. That opening sequence you saw, it took a lot of force to twist that tree and fold it over the way it was done. It just very odd. Honestly, I've seen a lot of deadfall breaks and pushovers, but I've never seen anything quite like that. Really interesting, compelling stuff, but nothing concrete. So what I want to share with you today comes from Jeanette and Tracy. They still go to this place, so they asked me not to be too specific, but it's a state cabin that you can basically make reservations for and stay at them for, you know, I think they limit the amount of time or whatever. So they go to their favorite place, and they've been there many times. You know, 15 years total, off and on every other year, as they got time, because they had families and, you know, children to tend to and whatnot. Oh, fighter jets scrambling around. I'm near Hatcher's Pass right now. I was going to record, but the wind's too high, and it just pain in the ass as far as the wind blowing past the mic. So this is what you get today. Anyway, so they're at this cabin, and they're going to be there for 5 nights. The very first night they're around the campfire, and they hear a scream, kind of howl, kind of like an air raid siren, way off in the distance up this particular valley that it is kind of like it boxes out at the end. And Tracy was immediately shook by it. Jeanette was, she was like, it's just a weird noise, you know, it's probably a wolf howl or something, just a sick wolf. Well, Tracy wasn't feeling that assessment, so she went, got the shotgun her husband sends with her every time she goes. She loaded it up, got it ready, and Jeanette was a little perturbed because it took away from the mellow vibe around the campfire, right? So Tracy is like, you're going to have to accept it. There's something off about that, and if it is a wolf, a sick wolf, we may, you know, need the shotgun. So they sat around, and Jeanette says it was about 2 hours. Tracy, who was paying more attention, says it was about an hour, a little over an hour maybe, before the second howl scream. After the second one, it was closer, a lot louder, and it just unnerved them both to where they retreated into the cabin to just be indoors with something around them. Well, they're inside for a couple hours and landed the midnight sun. It wasn't overly dark. It was twilight in the sky, dark in the tree line. And there was about 50 yards circumference around this particular cabin. And Tracy periodically would go and look out. There was 2 windows, one on either side of the entryway, you know, which was in the center of the, you know, that wall. And Tracy was standing in the left window looking out, and Jeanette was at a table at the biggest window off to the right-hand side if you're inside this little cabin, which is a simple A-frame style, a little loft upstairs for a sleeping area, dingy bench. There is a little like a log book so people can write so-and-so from so-and-so visited on this date or whatever, you know, just a little log journal thing off to the side of the door or whatever. So on the inside, we're facing the door on the way out, real small deck, about 4 or 5 steps down, window on either side, and then a big window by this table that was set over off to the side. So Jeanette sitting at the table and Tracy over at the window on the left. Tracy says, "Do you hear that?" And at that moment, Tracy was hearing, she said it was bipedal steps, thump, 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 thump. And she said it was at a regular cadence, but it sounded like it was coming from the side where Jeanette was sitting by the table. Well, Jeanette's looking out the window and says, "There's nothing out here. You're being paranoid. You're getting me sketched out. You know, I wish you would calm down." And she goes, "Look," Tracy tells her, "these screams are not normal and we need to be aware, and because we don't know." So Jeanette's like, "Well, look, we've been coming here for this long. We've heard similar stuff." And Tracy is thinking back going, once or twice we heard something off in the distance, but it wasn't like this. You know, there was no comparison. So Tracy was sketched about it. And Jeanette was just kind of lackadaisical, like, whatever. It's you're being overly paranoid. Don't, you know, bring down the whole good vibe of this trip. Tracy just wasn't going to have it because she felt something wrong within herself, and she keeps periodically hearing this noise. And so she's looking out this left window, and then she'd walk over to the right-hand side one to get a look off to the, you know, further off to the left, because when she was standing in the left window, she had limited vision because of a bush that was near the window on the outside. So she would go to the right window to look out to see past that bush, and she kept hearing this noise, and she said it sounded like footsteps. And Jeanette, you know, over a little bit of time got tired of dealing with the stress of it or whatever, and said, "I'm gonna go lay down. Let me know if you find out whatever is going on." So as Jeanette's going up the stairs, it's just a little ladder basically up to this little loft. As she's going up it, she stops and lets out a scream. So there was no lanterns on in this cabin. It landed the midnight sun. There was enough ambient light outside to where it lit up indoors enough to where they didn't need to light a lantern or any of that kind of stuff. It was approximately 2:30 in the morning, according to what they said. And she lets out a scream and yells, "Monster, monster," and hauls ass up into this loft. Tracy immediately turns around, sees something dark by that big window, and it moves out of view. Immediately, Tracy goes right up that loft along with Jeanette. She was sitting up there. She had the shotgun with her. And they basically laid on their bellies looking down from this little loft area, which is only maybe 8 feet off the ground, inside of the floor of the cabin. And they could see all 3 windows from their little vantage point, and they're all looking, and they see nothing in the big window, and they're continually looking back and forth, whispering to each other, "What was it? What'd you see?" And Jeanette said, "It was big, and it looked at me." And Tracy was like, "What did you see? What did it look like? Was it a bear?" And Jeanette said, "No, it's not a bear. I couldn't make out a whole lot because it was all dark, but it was looking at me." And she said, "What did it look like?" She was kind of losing her patience because she wanted to know what the hell. And as Jeanette's trying to explain it, she starts pointing because Tracy's focused on Jeanette, and Jeanette's kind of still looking around as she's talking. And Jeanette starts pointing over to that right-hand side window. Tracy looks over real quick and sees what Jeanette's seeing, and this thing is swaying back and forth in that window, looking up at him, kind of swaying back and forth, almost like he was sizing them up. Tracy said that the front of that cabin, it kind of backed into a small hillside, and the front side was higher off the ground than the back side because it was on these pilings, right? And she said that when she would be outside, she would have to, she's 5'7", she would have to reach up to grab the bottom of that window. So this thing was tall enough to almost be to the top of the inside of that window, and she guesstimated 10 foot tall. And it's swaying back and forth looking at them. And Jeanette lets out a scream that totally makes Tracy lose focus on what she was staring at because it was so blood curdling. This thing just continues swaying, and after the scream Jeanette let out, Tracy said this thing banged against above the window, boom, and the whole place shook, and then it went out of view of the window. They were freaked out because the whole place shook, and they realized just how powerful this thing was. And Tracy said that she couldn't sit still. She was laying down, sitting up, she checking to make sure the gun was loaded. She lost all self-control to a certain extent. She couldn't sit still. Her angst was way over the top. Jeanette had basically curled up in a ball saying, "We need to get out of here. We need to get out of here." Tracy agreed, but they weren't going to do it in the dark, because this thing is obviously outside. So it's quiet for a while. They don't hear anything. They don't see anything. So Tracy gets the courage, comes down the little ladder way, goes over to that left-hand side window, and is looking out it. And as she's looking at it, nothing. So she goes over to the right window. Meanwhile, glancing over at that bigger window off by the little table there. She said when she was looking out, got over to the right window, looking out the direction where that bush was, past the bush by the window on the left. She said this thing stood up because it looked like it had been crouching down, stood up, and then walked off. Just walked off across out of her view into the trees. She said it felt peaceful like when it walked away. She don't know why she felt there was a peace to it, but that's what she said she felt. So I'm just sharing what she said. So she tells Jeanette, "Hey, it left. So as they're sitting there, they wait till first light, but they're packed up. They got their stuff. Come first light where they could actually see the car easily and surroundings very easily, they left. They got in the car, and as they were turning around, the furthest distance was about 50 yards to the tree line. As they were turning around, Tracy was driving. She said she looked over, just scanning the trees because they were paranoid, trying to get the hell out of there. And she said she saw it still in the tree line, moving back and just moving back off into the woods. And she gunned it out of there. This happened in 2021, around June. And again, they go to this place still. Although they look at it differently, so they asked me not to be too specific. So it's on the Kenai Peninsula. It's a state cabin, and they knew nothing about the hairy man or big. They heard about it, but they didn't buy into it. There's several people that have had that same experience where they just thought it was all hogwash, and then all of a sudden, here it is walking in front of them. Anyway, I want to thank Tracy and Jeanette for being patient for me to get back a hold of them. And also there will be a video coming out soon, Denali Highway excursion. Stay tuned for that. That one's going to be an adventure. We're going to go Swede Lakes, North Fork of the Golcana. So we'll catch you guys on the next one here.